we are streaming on YouTube, so you can watch live and comment there. Also on Instagram Live at Smooth981 and at Valentine Ohu. Now, mmuzo, Nigeria's Security and Exchange Commission has just come out with a new circular overnight, and it took a lot of people by surprise, especially young people that have been investing in securities abroad, against investment platforms trading foreign securities. Now, in this circular, they have advised capital market operators to stop giving support to online investment trading platforms providing access to foreign securities in the country. Please enlighten us, what's been existing, how these trading platforms have been avoiding the regulatory umbrella, staying away from it, so to avoid certain costs, and the implication of this move.
Okay, so Valentine, good morning. This is quite an interesting story. And I mean, I had to go on Twitter to read, people's reactions, and I was really surprised, many were not expecting this from SEC. I mean, I haven't been through the CBN on directives. It was some months ago about the cryptocurrency, but thankfully, I'm happy that SEC, I'm going to speak from both ends. SEC is not saying that it should stop it, right? It's just saying that it should not support. So I just want to make it clear to Nigerians. I mean, I'm just getting the feeds from the feedback, on the story from people on Twitter. What SEC is saying that they need to stay, they need to keep to the procedures and and stay within the confinements of the laws. So we've had cases of some of these funny platforms, exploiting Nigerians where monies are not counted for and what have you. And most of these platforms that themselves operate in a way that you cannot exactly tell who is behind what. But thankfully, SEC is beginning to put a searchlight into this and saying, we want you to come plain. I mean, come under our umbrella. Let us understand your modalities and work with us. So I think that SEC should make it clear enough, because people were not quite clear, the direction SEC was going with that, with that announcement. So SEC should make it clear enough. SEC is not saying they should discontinue. It's only saying that there should be provisions, these platforms should work in line with the Nigerian laws. And I would just say this clearly, that I think that what's important is that they should create a new licensing category for these online platforms. I mean, it's an online platform, so they cannot, our existing license, for the regular CMOs cannot, would not work for these digital platforms. So they need to create a new category of license for these online tech platforms. And do not forget that this is the time where our economy is deepening and many people are finding ways to help themselves. Investment is one way to manage one's finances these days. And given that the Naira itself should I use the word? Given that the Naira is currently going down, the value of the Naira is reducing by the day. It's good to look at foreign investments. And so government should not come too hard on these platforms, but, find a way to bring them into their coffers and then let them see what areas they need to tighten up, what loopholes need to be covered up, and then encourage Nigerians to make investment, because to be honest with you, we need foreign investment to survive in our country right now.
That is absolutely true, and you're spot on, mmuzo. It's actually a good move. It's just the communication is a bit skewed. Not skewed, but it just skews sentiments, right? Yeah. People at first hearing, in fact, let me read a part of the statements. On Thursday last night, it was released that the attention of the Securities and Exchange Commission has been drawn to the existence of several providers of online investment and trading platforms, which purportedly facilitate direct access to the investing public in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to securities of foreign companies listed on the Securities and Exchange Commission, exchanges registered in other jurisdictions. These platforms also claim to be operating in partnership with capital market operators registered with the Commission. Commission categorically states that by the provisions of sections 67 to 70 of the Investment Securities Act ISC of 2007 and rules 414 and 415 of the SEC rules and regulations, only foreign securities listed on the exchange registered in Nigeria may be issued, sold, or offered for sale or subscription to the Nigerian public. Accordingly, the CMOs who work in concert with the referenced online platforms are hereby notified of the Commission's position and advised to desist henceforth. It would be nice for them to explain, the ways that they've been saving Nigerians from doom and gloom, especially at the hands of those who are providing quick quick money-making
schemes.
ventures. Yes, because these have been existing. I mean, we had stories from Port Harcourt, Lagos. The people have been complaining they invested millions of naira and they were cash strapped because they couldn't, put a finger on whoever is running the operations. Some of these operations are clandestine. So we see the progression of things. Well, it's good that the SEC are clamping down on this thing, just putting in measures to protect Nigerians, but these need to be communicated clearly. And thanks for emphasizing that, mmuzo. Let's go to the next story quickly. This one from the Guardian newspaper. Please send your comments as well to WhatsApp 0809444981. Ikemesit, the NLC in Kano have accepted the old minimum wage. So twice already this week, we're taking the first story broke, I think Tuesday or Monday. Kano state government says, oh, they can't pay the new minimum wage, 30,000 naira. They're going to have to revert to 18,000 naira minimum wage because of lack of funds. They said they haven't gotten remittances, or rather federal government allocation. That is why. And then that obviously got a bad reaction. The next day, the government said, oh yeah, we're cutting salaries, our own salaries by 50%. And people were like, okay, we see what you're doing. So what's coming next? And then this is happening. Please take us through the story and what there are some conditions aligned with this story. Go
ahead. So you have practically summarized it, right? The Kano state government is in a fiscal bind, and unlike fiscal binds in the past where governments have been able to, generally exempt themselves, or at least the top echelon, right, of the government hierarchy, while much of the public civil service, right, has to deal with delayed salaries. In Kano's case, everyone is feeling the pinch and everyone is feeling the bite. Again, if you believe the sound bites coming out of the state government, national president of the NLC, Ayuba Waba, said that this decision was reached after an emergency meeting with the government delegation led by, the state's head of service. And Waba actually listed those conditions that you hinted at, including a pledge to refund all deductions depending on any federal allocation increase that's accruable to the state. So March's salary deductions are expected to be refunded to workers, along with April and May's deductions. If the state's FAC allocation increases during the period, the report doesn't say anything about where Kano moves from that arrangement after the end of the second quarter. But I would imagine that Labour and government will be meeting at some point. This is hardly confined to Kano, right? So, in case you get the impression that this is a, local, set of circumstances that's unique to Kano, this is hardly the case in Kano. In Taraba, Labour and government having a similar tussle over the new minimum wage. The state government, they're saying that, due not only to a reduction in allocations, but also because it had to be a significant cost in terms of managing the COVID-19 situation in that state, they will not be able to pay the new national minimum wage. And that state's labor unions, under the auspices of the Joint Public Service Negotiating Council, says nope, the state government is hiding under COVID-19 to deny them the right to the new national minimum wage. They've criticized the attitude of the government as lukewarm, and they insist that this has nothing to do with the pandemic and everything to do with the lack of political will by Jalingo to actually implement this. This situation in Kano and Taraba is just emblematic of what's going on all across the country, where the federal government, is issuing a directive that requires implementation at the state level, and there's differing state capacities on on how to move, right? We respect to the minimum wage. A firm majority of states are saying, look, we can't pay this. We have to go back to 18K. But if you're an average Nigerian, try your damn best to live either on 18,000 or on 30,000 a month. If you're able to figure that out, Smooth FM would like to talk to you, I would imagine.
Definitely, because we like to get insights from everybody. messages here on WhatsApp. Yemi Marina says, the point of correction, SEC has not asked us to stop yet. It's the same handwriting as crypto when the first gave us heads up and then an outright ban. The administration is an expensive mistake, he says. All right, Yemi. Barrister Dan Okuda from Igondo says, good morning, Valentine. While the rest of the world is embracing digital economy in Nigeria, Nigeria is still embracing, while the world is still embracing digital economy, Nigeria is still embracing analogy economy. Who does this thing? What a country. Dorothy says, it's absolutely absurd that it looks like the federal government always tries to stifle or block average Nigerians from diversifying their investments with all these unannounced and baseless policies, while this government strives or thrives on basking in its citizenry's suffering without providing adequate and viable alternatives is just beyond me. And that's essentially one of the questions I was asked during Business Express 91 this morning, like, why do you have to ban stuff or try to fix stuff that's not broken? How about integrating them, just welcoming them? You know, how we have all these announcements. And I said this earlier, I was like, with all these new funding announcements, left, right, and center of tech companies or fintech companies, something like this is bound to come. And a month after, I was proven right. Yinka says, on the issue of Kano not being able to pay minimum wage and on a national level in general, when are we going to agree that minimum wage and head counts of civil servants should be directly proportional to the IGR, internally generated revenue of a state? Because if we continue this way, then some states shouldn't have elected governors, but appointed administrators from Abuja. At least we save costs from conducting elections. Tayo says, it takes a lot to survive in Nigeria, let alone to live. It's like the government is designed to frustrate you. What's the gain being backward with digital economy? Austin from Satellite Town says, Kano State government cannot pay the new minimum wage, but it's claiming that they have the highest population as a state. They will come first. And then the governor knows how to put down dollars. Oh boy. Trolling continues. Now, Ada says, no, the SEC is actually clamping down on online platforms that are offering foreign securities, such as platforms offering foreign equities. They are saying that only foreign securities registered in Nigeria with them can be offered for investments. This is not supporting innovation. Thank you, Ada. They said this is part of Forex control. At 15 minutes before 8 o'clock, the next message here from Odiri Ken on Instagram says, how many NLC do we have? Well, as long as the various governors can pay, it's good. A need to carry on with minimum wage without going to the concurrent list. Oh, okay, interesting. Talking about autonomy and decentralization. Now, let's reflect on security. Not securities with money, your security of lives and property. Kidnappings are rife in this time, sadly so. The security operatives are trying to clamp down on kidnappers and operations across different states. Ogun Rivers, Imo, and Katsina have been mentioned, with the record of 12 people who've been abducted in the past couple of days. What are your thoughts on this story as reported by Punch? Mmuzo, please.
Valentine, to be honest with you, if I say I don't have a thought, I mean it. You know why? It seems like every time we come here, we analyze the news, we give directions. I've also heard intelligence, security professionals share their views on how best to tackle insecurity situation. But it seems like nothing significant is being done. So I come here heartbroken every time saying that, oh, we can do this, we can do that. Look at every day, it's in the news. There's one kidnap situation here or the other. And guess what? It's not just the ordinary citizens who are being targeted now. Even political officials are also being targeted. I mean, even policemen, police stations as well. So if the security men or agencies, people who walk around with orderlies, are not protected, then what about me, who's just an ordinary citizen working on, going about my normal duties? Imagine the level of fear and scare that I have. So I do not know what to say to the government anymore. I mean, we've heard a lot of promises over and again. We've seen that officials have been changed over and again, but we haven't seen significant attack from the government on these bandits. And another thing is that these bandits have opened, have created a leeway for all kinds of crimes to be perpetrated on a daily basis. So you see court clashes, you see one small community fighting the other, and all the excuse on bandits. But we know that crime is beginning to take different formations right now, and then we're just watching. So I really do not know what to say more than what we have said before, what we have analyzed before, really.
I mean, it's an interesting link to the preceding events of Imo State's jailbreak on Monday. Following up on that report, I'd like you to also weigh in on this story, Ikemesit, in linking the thoughts that was just shared by mmuzo. In terms of the proactive nature of security apparatus in Nigeria. In this story that I'm referring to from the Punch newspaper, Imo State Commissioner of Police was said to have failed to act on information, intelligence that he allegedly got 2 weeks before that break. A former director of Department of State Services, the DSS, was interviewed on a TV station some 2 days ago, and he said that he sent intelligence reports to the police stations, the commissioner of police, and the governor of that state 2 weeks before. He said it 3 times. First 2 weeks before, the next one that same week, and then days before that incident, but nobody acted on it. What are your thoughts, please? And then intersperse it with what mmuzo just shared.
Yeah, it's it's problematic, really. You've got a situation where and there's a point I like to point out, right, in talking about the effectiveness of the police force. First and foremost, our police forces at inception, and there were an amalgamation of three provincial, more closer to paramilitary groups, right, than actual police forces, weren't from the bat empowered with the right techniques for investigation, and peace and order and building community relations and all of that. So they were basically instruments of societal control. They were there to break up protests, break up crowds, deal with subversive elements, right? And that's why there's always been a sort of semi-paramilitary perspective to policing that we've had in this country. So you look at the things that our police right now in the 21st century are good at, and there are those things, breaking up protests, crowd control, right, in public, clamping down on groups that are considered to be dissident, things like gathering and acting on the intelligence or building community relations that will feed into the police's intelligence apparatus. That's not stuff that they are very, very good at. And Imo appears to be a use case for what a failure on a statewide scale, right, of this kind will look like. And that's problematic because you've got dissident groups in all parts of the southeast, in portions of the south, and in many other parts of the country. The military can't do everything. They're in every state except for Kebbi, right, deploy the military operations. So all of the armed services are, all of the uniformed services, right, are stretched thin. And when you occupy that paradigm, you really, really want to put your best foot forward. And the emerging evidence and the emerging body of work is that in Imo, at least, the commissioner of police and some of the top hierarchy in that state didn't. So all of them have been redeployed to Abuja. This is like a bit of an interesting one, and then I'll get off of this. The former Inspector General of Police flies into Imo, redeploys the Commissioner of Police and all of the other, important members of the police hierarchy there. And by the time he's done, he's booted out by the president. So it's quite interesting, just how high up, the anger and the frustration, with respect to their conduct goes.
So what's the rationale behind redeployments? I would expect in a saner climate for them to be fired outrightly, because for not acting on intelligence that is not want. That's just me, right? That's all I know. Or that's the much I know at this point. But then also to add to what you just shared, the former Inspector General of Police, while he was talking, it was during his speech that he was actually let go. And so I mean, I'm just thinking, is that enough? What's the point of redeployments? Redeploying them to Abuja, does that mean they are going to be put under the spotlight even more? What difference does it make?
So the Punch, right, for this story interviewed an unnamed senior police officer who said that, redeployment to Abuja is basically, I'm paraphrasing here and summarizing, that, redeployment to Abuja is basically, you being contained because, and this is a direct quote, you can't send incompetent officers to any state, right? They'll simply just go and there'll be the possibility of them repeating and reprising, right, the conduct from the state they were redeployed from. So, go to Abuja, sit in a desk row, occupy some administrative role, right, and learn your lesson while at it. There is some conduct though, and I see your point, right? There is some conduct though that should be deemed problematic enough that that should earn you, right? A total boot out, right, from the police force. Not very certain on where we draw the line, right now with respect to, what conduct would lead to that kind of outcome. So,
thank you for that, Ikemesit, because in asking that question, I was just talking along the lines of precedents that you set when you take these decisions, as a consequence of what they did or didn't do. Messages here on Instagram Live from Smooth 981. Zita Oliver says, "Let's continue talking. If we don't talk, then we'll be suffering in silence. The insecurity in our country is too deep-rooted in the breakdown of leadership." And then he comes back to say that talking point by leaders about overstretched armed forces is BS. I grew up in the barracks. We have a 300,000 strong army. There's the Navy and there's the Air Force. Doesn't seem to be any leadership. That's me paraphrasing, but then it's fraught with a lot of challenges. Mmuzo, there's a story from the Guardian newspaper that reports on the cholera outbreak in Bayelsa State. And this announcement is coming on the heels of an important health conference that's going to be hosted in that state. Please take us through this story, especially highlighting the efforts that the state is taking to curb the epidemic at this point.
Okay, so sad thing that there's a cholera outbreak just at a time we're treating COVID-19 pandemic. The cholera outbreak is in Bayelsa, and then 25 people so far have been killed or have died to the cholera disease. Well, thankfully, the state government has released a vaccine to cushion the level of death in the state, which is a good one. But my only worry is that, we've had cholera issues in the country before, and Bayelsa being a riverine community or area, there's lots of water bodies around there and polluted ones at that. So the government needs to see ways to help to sanitize the environment, especially the waters, so that they are drinkable for people. And then there's also a talk about a 10-year healthcare plan, and I'm beginning to wonder to myself, can the government make long and short and long-term goals so that we can see that as a progressive, move in all of the promises we're making to the citizenry? Because now they're saying there's a 10-year health plan. What exactly the 10-year health plan? Besides the vaccine has been released now, the OCV vaccine, that's what it's called. It's called the oral cholera vaccine, and then it's being sent to the headquarters and then local communities, to ensure that citizens are safe. At least the effect of cholera is very much reduced. I'm just hoping that our government is proactive enough to take action before we begin to see causes.
What I would like to even see alongside this story is the efforts of the state government, of Ministry of Health, and even Ministry of Water Resources in that state to sanitation conditions. How they are trying to improve efforts to improve the sanitation conditions, especially around those areas. Access to clean, drinkable water, water that's used to bath and do other things. These are things that should be handled, especially in public places or even rural communities, because that's a major challenge, especially in those areas. Well, thank you so much, Mmuzo. Let's take some messages here on WhatsApp. You're listening to Freshly Pressed 981 live on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM, at Smooth 981 FM as well on Twitter. Please leave a comment there. You can send messages to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. I'm with Ikemesit Effiong and Nwokoro. Tara from Ajah says, it all boils down to laziness. You're repeatedly informed but did nothing but blame shadows. Dr. I says, hello, apt analysis. We don't have a police curve. And the politicians, especially the retired military ones, do not want a virile and modern police force. I think we should go the route of hiring a private or foreign head for a police force. The UK did it, and so it's not impossible. That would require them reviewing the constitution altogether, because there are a lot of sections that do not provide for this, Dr. I. Benga Akamu says, we should keep an eye on Imo State. So much is happening there, and again highlights the weakness of our security agencies and by extension the country. The activities of the men of the police haven't won them any friends, even when information is provided, if the police does not act on them as at when due, or even brand the provider of such information a suspect or worse. Kenny Hitsuge says, good morning, Val. Once the police and civil force of a nation has been demystified, it's over. Inka Bolu says, until an elected official, especially a governor or a senator, okay, I'm not going to take this because it's really, does not bode well for us. Now, let's look at the new setup of universities. We thought we had too many universities, but the government says it's not enough, that it's too small, and then makes a comparison with other climes. The education sector and those climes, I'm not sure exactly how stable they are, but I know comparatively it's stronger than Nigeria's, right? They've approved for 20 more universities, bringing the tally to 197, with 99 private universities currently in existence. Mmuzo, what are your thoughts? Sorry, Ikemesit, your thoughts on this story, please.
If the AEC is to be believed, we don't have a lot of universities. During the last full admission cycle in 2019, JAM, the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board, said that out of 1.8 million candidates that registered for the UTME, only 612,000 were admitted. That numbers, represents about 34% of the entire sum. So, our university authorities say that illustrates gross inadequacy in terms of access. That's a direct quote. And that, we need more universities. There was a comparison with Brazil, which has almost a similar population profile to us and has got 441 universities. Mexico, that's a lot less populated, and has got 375 universities. And Russia, which is definitely smaller population-wise, but actually has almost 800 universities. So they have a point, right, as to what they're saying. But for us, it's got to go beyond just the numbers. We need to talk about the relevance, and how education sits within a wider economic growth, right, and jobs creation strategy. If not, you'll have a situation where we're graduating something or the other of almost 1 million Nigerians, right, a year from our universities. You also have to look at that end of the pipeline. All right, what are they going to do when they come out? Do the jobs exist, right, for them? When you're operating in a 27% unemployment and an almost 50% underemployment climate, that has to be the thinking. So I understand that the NUC and JAM and all of the other people who are in charge of managing education, right, have it in their remit to look at, education from sort of like a narrow perspective. But it's got to be someone's job in the cabinet or the president or someone at the ministerial level to look at the big picture and where this sits, right, within the wider question of how do we efficiently and more effectively create opportunities for every Nigerian out there. If not, why increase the pipeline if they will come out and not find anything to do?
Yeah, it's about quality as against quantity. Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A tweet here. It says Nigerian companies are not attractive and lack transparency. This is the sense of the challenge to be challenged. It says the exchange is manipulative and they clamp down on foreign securities while the authorities determined to make Nigerians poorer. Special thanks to you, Ikemesit Effiong, mmuzo Nwokoro. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. mmuzo is at mmuzo Nwokoro on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Ikemesit is at Judge Ike. I want to especially thank you, as always, for being a part of this show. Freshly Pressed 981. You can find any section of the show, any segment that you've missed on YouTube. So go back there and type Squeeze 981 FM Lagos in the search box.